We've become so comfortable with the executive branch of the government abusing its citizens and violating our rights and violating what they're structured to do under the law that we've just become used to it. And if we start treating them as criminals, maybe they'll think twice before they act so criminally in the future.
True. Now, that isn't Ben Shapiro reacting to the latest Trump indictment coming out of Fulton County. Of course, that indictment has to do with Trump's attempts to overturn the 2020 presidential election in the state of Georgia. That was Ben Shapiro back in 2014 when he was promoting a book he wrote, essentially urging for the prosecution of members of the executive branch, particularly members of the Obama administration. So that book was what he was on Larry King's show to talk about. And I want to go to some of the videos or excerpts from that interview in just a moment. But before we do, I just want you to get a sense of where Ben Shapiro stands in regard to the Trump indictments. Whatever you think of the Trump indictments, one thing is for certain, the glass has now been broken over and over again. Political opponents can be targeted by legal enemies. Running for office now carries the legal risk of going to jail on all sides. So he is worried about the political ramifications of pursuing the prosecution of a former president of the United States. But when it came to a sitting president of the United States, Ben Shapiro appeared to have absolutely no problem pursuing the RICO statute in order to go after Obama and members of his administration. Here he is promoting his book, The People versus Obama, the criminal case against the Obama administration. This was an interview that took place on June 23rd of 2014. Let's watch.
He's 2 years into his second term. You're not going to impeach him. Are you proposing criminal charges against the administration or specific who?
Well, I mean, there are certain specific players within the administration. Lois Lerner at the IRS, the Attorney General, for one, who would be subject to criminal charges. The problem is, of course, that the Department of Justice is the only body that is capable of bringing criminal charges at this point under federal law. What I actually make the case for in the People versus Barack Obama is I make the case that the RICO Act, the Racketeering, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act of 1970, which allows for civil charges to be brought, people can file civil suits, that be broadened to allow people to sue members of the executive branch. So the people themselves essentially would become the guardians of the criminal law, because, sorry, but I just don't trust any executive branch to prosecute its own guys.
Okay, so right off the bat, I just want to note some distinctions here. He's talking about bringing or using the RICO statute in order to pursue charges. Well, it's not even, I mean, it would be civil charges, right? Not criminal charges against members of the Obama administration and Obama himself. We'll get into the details over what criminality Shapiro believes that the Obama administration had engaged in. But what are your thoughts on this, Cenk?
Well, I mean, it's right-wing hypocrisy. It's the most normal thing in the world. It's if he didn't say one thing when it applied to Obama and another when it applied to Trump, I would be shocked. And so Shapiro happened to have made the RICO statute argument, but is he any different than any of the other right-wingers who do nonstop hypocrisy about everything? I mean, yesterday we covered the story of them saying, we demand that Weiss be announced as special counsel. And then they announced Weiss as special counsel. They're like, we demand that Weiss not be special counsel. That's what all right-wingers do. In this case, Shapiro's argument in regards to a sitting president makes no sense, not because he's a sitting president. Sitting president also can't commit crimes, right? But because he didn't really allege any crimes by Obama. Well, he alleged my feelings got hurt and I didn't like what he did and I disagree with him. So why don't we imprison him or what civil or what civil RICO? I'm not sure it makes sense. I don't even know what he's talking about. Anyway, but now when you've got all these indictments of actual criminal activity by Donald Trump, he's like, oh, RICO, no, you should never use that against the president.
No, okay, hold on. Let's be fair, okay? Because I actually did the work and I sat through the entirety of that interview to understand what the accusations against Obama happened to be. And look, let me just be clear about something. The Obama administration did things, including, assassinate an American citizen abroad who was suspected of terrorism without due process.
Look, I know that. We've talked about it. You think Ben Shapiro's gonna complain about it? He's gonna love that. That guy was Muslim.
No, hold on. I mentioned that to say that I'm engaging in this conversation in good faith because I do believe that the Obama administration engaged in some criminal activity and did not have to deal with any of the consequences. I say,
yeah, I'll get to that.
Now, Of course, Shapiro does not mention that. Shapiro mentions Benghazi, right? So
there's nothing criminal in Benghazi.
Hold on. So what he's referring to is the basically sending weapons to Libya. And I looked into this.
Oh, you mean what every single president has ever done?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
we should have indicted Ronald Reagan, please.
By the way, Larry King, to his credit, asked that question, and Shapiro, to his credit, said, yeah.
Oh, no, not to his credit, because he's a liar.
Probably,
if Ronald Reagan was around now, he'd be halfway up his ass.
But
there's no way he would have said that about Reagan.
You're probably right, but at least in the context and in regard to optics, he responded to that question the right way. That's all I'm saying.
Well, okay.
You don't have to believe him, and to be honest with you, I don't, because of this double standard that we're experiencing right now with Donald Trump and how he doesn't like the fact that Donald Trump has been indicted now 4 times, and the 4th time, of course, has to do with the RICO statute being implemented in order to criminally charge him. But nonetheless, the specific thing that Shapiro was talking about was, yes, the sale of weapons, specifically to the Qataris, and how that ended up in the hands of the jihadists in Libya. Now, the Obama administration didn't knowingly do that. They didn't know that the weapons they were giving to the Qataris was gonna end up in the hands of the jihadists, but that's typically how things work out when it comes to us funneling weapons abroad.
Are you kidding me?
Like,
Bush
it happens
gave
all the time.
Tons of weapons in the Middle East that wound up being used against us, and especially sent in by our so-called allies, Saudi Arabia, okay? So look, guys, there's a difference between unconstitutional and criminal. So, and then there are tough lines in between. So for example, presidents ordering bombings without getting congressional approval for war is technically unconstitutional, but nobody ever does anything about it.
That's right.
And both Republican and Democratic presidents have done that ad nauseum, right? So that is unconstitutional, but it is not criminal. Whereas a president saying, break into the Watergate office where the Democratic Party has its headquarters and get me their information so I can cheat in this election, is criminal because it's breaking and entering along with many other crimes, right? And so did Democratic presidents in the past go past unconstitutional into criminal? Almost certainly. Okay, and so now look, whenever it gets into national security, the line of unconstitutional versus criminal gets very hazy. But I could make a case that Obama broke the law and did something criminal when he authorized the killing of an American citizen without a warrant, without a court approved order, without anything. It was an extrajudicial killing.
Yep.
Now, since the Republicans also love that, and all of Washington loves it. Oh, you killed a Muslim guy, and by the way, his 16-year-old son, and by the way, later, his tiny daughter in 3 different bombings.
Yep.
Oh, golly gee, Obama made a mistake, so did the national security apparatus. I don't believe you guys, I think you murdered those people, okay? So maybe one of them was an accident, but you tell me all 3 in 3 different bombings? No, they murdered those people. So you think we're like light on Obama or light on Democrats?
Yeah.
No, we actually care about principles.
1000%, and that's the reason why I bring all of this up. It's to say that when it comes to illegality, right? And this is what's so frustrating about every discussion having to do with Trump's behavior and Trump's potential criminal acts. It immediately turns into a partisan issue, when in reality, it shouldn't turn into a partisan issue. Love for the country and love for our democratic process should not be a partisan issue, depending on who the president doing the crime is. You get what I'm saying?
I do, and look, Shapiro is not uniquely guilty of it, and the right wing is not uniquely guilty of it. Go find one honest person on MSNBC. Well, you can't actually, it's Mehdi Hassan. But other than Mehdi, find one honest person on MSNBC, one of their primetime anchors who's gonna tell you, oh yeah, Biden did this wrong. Hunter Biden very likely broke the law and is a criminal. Obama should not have done that extrajudicial killing. Are you kidding me? Even the lightest little criticism of Obama on MSNBC, and they'll rip you to shreds.
I mean, they tried to rip you to shreds.
And literally did it to me, that's right. So look, unfortunately, media had this idea that we were going to do news, but us naive folks here at TYT, we're still trying to do the news, right?
Yeah.
But everyone else is like, no. The news is just for propaganda for your own side.
Yeah, well,
and
I'm not interested in that.
Yeah, and brazenly with guys like Shapiro on the right wing, where they're like, I said this on Monday, who cares? My audience isn't gonna figure it out anyway. I have no respect for them. I'll say the exact opposite on Tuesday. Who cares, right? And I'll only support one side. I'll never, ever support the other side, never give them any credit. And again, MSNBC, very similar to that. And by the way, you can find tons of online leftist shows very similar to that. We don't want to have an honest conversation. Our side is 100% right on every single issue, and they're 100% wrong. I want to get there right or wrong, okay?
Yeah.
And we don't agree with that. We think you should call them all out. George Bush did warrantless wiretapping and torture, both deeply illegal. So he was guilty, Dick Cheney was guilty, but so was Obama because he got into office and it was like, and he did this insane talking point that I can't believe people who claim to be educated and like upstanding citizens in the Democratic Party support when it's unconscionable. He said, we don't look backwards, we look forwards. But if you don't look backwards to prosecute crimes, you'll never prosecute a single crime. They were all in the past.
And refusing to prosecute sends a very clear message. The same message that we opened this segment with Ben Shapiro saying, well, we're all used to them breaking the law and doing whatever they want, and maybe we should hold them accountable so they stop doing that, right? So I want to go to one final clip from that interview with Larry King. Let's take a look.
What did he do hands-on that's criminal?
Well, see, this is the problem. This is why you have to use the RICO Act. So no president is ever going to have to do things, unless you're Richard Nixon, presumably. And there are tapes, is going to have to do things that are particularly hands-on. The government is run much more like a mafia-esque organization in which you have somebody at the top who makes a basic demand that certain things be done, and then somebody at the low level says, okay, well, I want to up my career, why don't I do this, right? This is Henry II with Thomas Becket, right? Will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest? And then somebody goes and rids him of the meddlesome priest. It is odd that all of the scandals, all of the criminal activity in the Obama administration has all redounded to the benefit of President Obama. Under American law, Barack Obama could literally strangle somebody on camera today, and he would have to be impeached, and then he would have to be tried in the Senate and convicted, and only then could you actually bring a criminal indictment against a president, because you can't bring a criminal indictment against a sitting president.
No, I thought that was just a fascinating portion of that conversation, because right now, as we speak, one of the defenses I see from the right wing in regard to Donald Trump and his attempts to overturn the presidential election was that, well, I mean, all these people surrounding him, all these lawyers, all these cronies engaged in the bad behavior, right? They persuaded Trump that the election was stolen from him. But Trump himself didn't engage in the criminality. It was the people around him who did. And Trump, poor Trump, he's the victim here. He genuinely bought what they were selling. He genuinely believed that the election was stolen from him. Yeah. Right?
And by the way, I mean, Shapiro accidentally laid out the good reason why you would use a RICO statute.
Exactly.
Because if you tell other people to rid me of the meddlesome priest, you're just as guilty as the guy who actually did it. Now, I'm going to note a couple of other ironies here. He said, now, nobody's going to say it on tape. Oops, Trump's on tape saying, get me 11,780 votes, one more than I need. It couldn't be more criminal if you tried. Right? And then he says, I mean, like, no president's gonna be hands-on, because he thinks the presidents are smart because Obama was smart, etc. Right? So he's like, of course, a Republican president would be so smart, he would never do it hands-on. And then here comes Donald Trump. He's got his hands all over it, his McDonald's laden, greasy hands. And he's like, get me the votes, right?
Yeah.
So now look, and then I note that line about rid me of this meddlesome priest. It's so obviously from the literature that he quoted, and it's in a good intellectual point. But then it was kind of haunting to look at it from a clip from about a decade ago, because what does right-wing media do? I'm not saying Shapiro does this, but Tucker Carlson certainly does, Alex Jones does, and others do, where they go, well, this guy's a real problem. Trump does it all the time. These Democrats are a real problem. Will no one rid me of these meddlesome Democrats? I mean, that is now right-wing media 101, okay? Finally, guys, to prove our consistency, what do we say about Trump all the time in regards to all this? Show us, go into a courtroom, and show us that you won the election. We're here for it, okay? So give us the evidence. You tried over 60 times and you had zero evidence. And now you're gonna get more opportunities in these cases, in the federal case and the Atlantic case. Show us, right? By the way, that is the same exact thing we told Obama when he did the extrajudicial killings. They said, oh no, Lockie, he's a terrorist. We said, well, wait a minute. He's a preacher and he preaches hate and we hate him, right? I can't stand him.
But he's an American citizen and he deserves his day in court, just like any other American citizen.
And if he's a terrorist, what did we say on the Young Turks? We said, prove it.
Yeah.
If he's a terrorist, bring him to trial, prove it. And you don't have to bring him in to do it, by the way. You could do it in absentia, and they've done that with other terrorists. At least show us that he was a terrorist before you kill him, right? And Obama administration was like, no, we don't want to show you the evidence. Did they ever have the evidence? My guess is no. My guess is Awlaki probably worked with the CIA and then turned on him and they wanted to get rid of him. They never had the evidence. That's my guess, but my guess is fact now because Obama didn't bring us the evidence. He didn't go to trial, and that's why I think he was guilty on that count. And Trump is guilty today. We care about evidence. We care about being principled and actually applying the facts, no matter if they're Democrats or Republicans. Do you see anybody else in media doing that?
No, I don't.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.